Research, insights, market intelligence that give you an edge. You know, somebody said a long time ago, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And it may still be true, but we live in a time of unparalleled data and information overload. Everything is tracked, measured, analyzed, recorded, interpreted, presented. And we've got new tools with AI, and we're going to learn about one of those in just a moment. So what are people doing today? What are the latest techniques? What's going to be possible tomorrow? And where are the grey areas, especially with AI? Never mind what we can and can't do. What about asking the question what we should or shouldn't do? So we have three leading research experts, and I'm delighted to welcome them. First up, I have to apologize to Mikkel, who has the most amazing story to tell about his surname. You can catch him at lunchtime on the radio analyzer stand. And I have to do this because I've been practicing, and as a Brit, this is never easy. Mikkel Ottersen has a new last name, which is Lernstrup.
Correct. Good stuff.
Is that okay?
Yep.
And I have to apologize to him because the name changed since last year, good story, and the wrong name's on the board. So we'll come back to that in a moment. But first, I'd like to welcome Sheng Song, a research consultant from Ster in the Netherlands. Now, he is on our partner side. So he's responsible for researching advertising effectiveness. And he's used neuroscience to learn why things work the way they do from both a campaign and a creative point of view. And you'll be very pleased to hear, because they're not always in great supply, he's also a big supporter and a big advocate for radio. So please welcome first Sheng Song.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'd like to talk to you about myths, stories about radio that exist. And I thought, what better country to do that in than Greece, the land, the country where the word myth originated from. And well, the ancient Greeks were amazing storytellers. Their stories have stood the test of time. But just like their stories have lasted for generations, there are also some stories, some myths about radio that just don't seem to go away. So I'd like to cover those with the studies we did, dive into that a little bit, because those stories tend to lead to numbers like this. I found this poll by the World Federation of Advertisers, which asked some key advertisers from what is their outlook for radio for this year, and about a third of them expected a decline in spend in radio, which I find is a shame, especially for them, because there's a lot of studies that have proven the effectiveness of radio, especially when it comes to short-term profit, and also when it comes to long-term profit. Well, at Ster, we've done, over the past few years, we've done a lot of research, neuroscience research into the topic of attention, how it works for radio, how it works for TV, and how the combined efforts work. So we've used a lot of EEG studies. So we put people in a lab, we gave them funny little hats, so we could really look into their brain and see how their brain works, how their brain reacts to radio advertising. So we're really able to dive into the psyche of radio. And one core aspect of all those studies we did is we wanted to keep it, we wanted to mimic reality as much as possible. So one aspect that we did, for example, was invite them into a living room type of situations, where they would sit there and with his hat on and then be exposed to pieces of radio content, pieces of TV content, around which we put advertising, to really mimic a way where people are exposed to advertising. And another aspect that we really wanted to incorporate in these studies is how the way people consume advertising, because most people, as you know, are probably not actively looking out for advertising. They are more likely to be exposed to it in a distracted manner. So when an advertising break comes, you're more likely to do something else, maybe take out your phone and really not pay too much attention to what ad is playing. So we want to incorporate that in our study, and the way we did that was in this living room situation. We had people, we gave them a tablet, There were little games on there, and that allowed us to mimic this multimedial way of consuming advertising, to really see, to really create a situation with distraction and see how that affects the effectiveness of the advertising. And one key common thread in all these studies that we did is that it really highlighted the power of radio. And I'm a radio guy, I love radio. So I was really happy that it worked out this way. And I'd like to share a few highlights with you of the studies we found. And I'd like to use, where else? Greek mythology to to tell you about those highlights. So there were 3 myths that I would like to cover, and those are common things that we heard from advertisers, or why they don't use radio, or why they underestimate radio. So in the topic of attention, that radio doesn't grab attention, for instance, or for our visual products, that you need to see it in order to buy it, or even that radio doesn't work for brand building. So the first myth I'd like to cover is the myth of the sirens. Sirens were mythical creatures that could enchant sailors using only their voices. They would lure them to their island, to their cliffs, to their doom, but they used only their voices. So no visuals, no flashy images, just the power of their voice. And I think that links up nicely with the first myth, that radio doesn't grab attention. Often I hear it because it's consumed in the background, we're not actively paying attention to it, that radio is less effective. Actually, what we found in our study is that the reality is, just like the sirens, radio is actually an attention magnet. If you, because of the study, we did it in a more realistic way, so people are consuming advertising with distraction, and the thing that pulls people back into what draws the attention of people is actually sound. So we found that audio is the best way to cut through this distraction of people, bringing people back. Audio is processed more quickly in the background. It's easier to be processed, and it's the thing that will get your attention back to the advertising. And one really efficient way to do that is to make use of contrast. So, for example, using an ad with a male voice and a female voice, 2 distinctive voices that you really have a difference between it. And one really good way to do that in an ad is to use pauses. And here's an example of that.
Stop. Dat geeft ruimte.
The Dutch people in the audience probably have heard this ad a lot of times, but this I thought was a nice highlight to a very efficient use of contrast, because you're really focusing on what comes next. So radio is actually an attention magnet. The second myth I'd like to cover is the myth of Tiresias. Tiresias was a prophet from ancient Greeks, and he was, in one way, he was cursed by the gods with blindness, so he couldn't see. And the other hand, he was compensated for it with a gift of clairvoyance. So he's able to predict the future, see the truth, despite being blind. And I think that links up pretty nicely with the second myth that we often hear, especially from FMCG type of advertisers, that you need to see a product in order to be able to buy it. And while there's maybe a little, we did see that, for example, visual media is quicker to generate desire, which links to purchase behavior. Underestimating the power of audio also means that they're missing out on its possible benefits. And we found that radio works really well for visual products if you know how to use it well, if you know where its strengths lie. So, as I mentioned, if you want to build purchase behavior quickly, then we do see that visual works quicker that way. But what we found for radio is that it has the longevity. So it may take a little bit longer to generate this desire, to generate this purchase interest. But once it gets going, once it's built up, the effects actually become stronger than what we see for visual media. So if you have a product that's not really based on a certain time frame, or like candy bars, for instance, the key thing is to stay top of mind for a longer time. And radio is actually the excellent medium to do that, because it can build up desire over time, over a long time. And radio has also the power to evoke images, and that's actually the best way to generate this additional desire. So for instance, you can mention something about a purple packaging in an ad, or talk about a sunny day in Athens, or even use sounds that evoke this, like this one. Anyone thirsty? So you can make radio work for visual products. It just might take a little bit longer, but the end effects will be much stronger. And the last myth I'd like to cover is the myth of Hermes. You might have heard of him, one of the Greek gods, also my personal favorite of the Greek gods. And he was the messenger of the gods. He was the fastest one of them all. He could get a message across anywhere in the world instantly without the need for theatrics. And I think that links up really nicely with the last myth that I like to cover, that radio doesn't work for brand building. What we often hear is that advertisers prefer to use radio as more of a sales-oriented medium, just to get that final push to get to the website or something like that, underestimating its pretty strong brand-building capabilities. And because in reality, what we found in those studies is radio is actually able to build brands at lightning speed, just like Hermes. And it can even help make your TV campaign come across more strongly. So what we found, for instance, is that to build a brand, you need to have your message cut through, and that requires a lot of mental attention. And we found that radio messages or radio ads are actually able to generate up to 1.5 times more attention than a visual ad, especially if you're in an environment where distraction plays a role. So messages are able to cut through more clearly, helping you to build a brand more quickly than just the use of visual medium. And what is even more interesting is that if you pair it with a TV ad, so if you start with the radio part of a campaign, the follow-up TV ad, the effects of it will actually be amplified. The TV ad will draw more attention if you proceed it with radio. And one very underutilized creative mechanism in radio ads is the use of storytelling. It works especially well for radio because our brains are sort of hardwired to listen to stories. They give us structure, they give us an idea of where we are, and they help us to follow along to an ad. And especially if you use that in radio, so really build a story, it will draw more attention than when you're just naming a list of products. Important thing is to keep it simple and keep it easy to follow for people. So 3 myths about radio that I've tried to dispel using Greek mythology. The Sirens has told us that radio, instead of not grabbing attention, is actually an attention magnet. Tiresias, the blind prophet, told us that you don't always need to see a product, you need to hear a product in order to buy it. And lastly, Hermes, the fastest messenger of the god, told us that radio helps build brands at lightning speed. 3 myths, 3 new stories about radio, born in Greece. Thank you.
What a great presentation, great start. I think people in this room knew radio worked. We can now radio works, proved by science. Great presentation, thank you so much. So our second speaker has made a big promise. He has promised to refund your ticket if he's boring. I hope you're ready. So with apologies again for not getting the name completely right, Mikkel Ottersen Lernstrup is CEO of Radio Analyzer. He's brought the family, which is always good to see down the front in their understated wear. It's a tool that's widely used across Europe. He's also going to give us insight into a great application of AI that provides producers of both music and speech programming a level of insight, a level of understanding that really has never been available before. Please welcome on stage Mikkel.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, so last year, I pretty much spent my 15 minutes of fame here at Radio Days giving a furious rant about cheese. which in hindsight may be a little bit weird, to be honest. And it came to the point where the day after the presentation, I went out of my hotel in downtown Munich, and a guy on the street shouted at me, "Hey, it's the cheese guy!" So, but I did have a point. This year I've promised my team, and especially my office manager Anna, who felt that the cheese went a little bit too far last year, that this will be the only cheese I talk about today. This perfectly ripe French brie, but I do have a point, which is that radio needs to remember something these years, and it's really important. We need to remember what radio needs to be. We need to remember what radio is and was. Oh. Sorry. The point is, in times of confusing political signals, threats from the outside, changes to the world order, if you refer that to yourself and what you as a person would do in confusing times, you would turn to your friends, a place where you feel safe and where you feel happy. And that's what radio has always been to a lot of people, a friend, a person who is trustworthy, a person who can be entertaining but doesn't always have to be, a person that will get you through the day, whatever that day might actually bring you. And I think that's more important now than ever, because radio has spent many years trying to do stuff that other platforms are really good at, and we've spent less time, less money, and less energy actually being what differentiates us from others. Radio research has always been terribly one-sided. And if you look at something and you only see half the picture, you don't really get to understand what's going on. I don't think Mona Lisa would have been considered a masterpiece if this was hanging in the Louvre. We would not understand the haunting smile because there's not a full picture to enjoy. We've always spent, this is even half the picture, but radio has spent 90% of the research budget, 90% of the time researching music, which is all good and dandy because we need to understand what listeners want to listen to, but we have not spent enough time researching our content. And the way we've done it has been extremely simplistic and expensive, because we've always had to gather a focus group and talk to them about what we have done and ideas for what we want to do. It becomes extremely difficult to do in a structured manner, and it's not something you can do quickly. So we tried to say, after we spent a few years working on an advanced methodology for music testing, we went, well, hey, what about we use the same methodology and use modern tools to try and create testing of journalistic content or entertainment content, whichever content you put on air, and we do it in the same structured way that you would test music. So we've done that, and I'm not going to get into the deep specifics of the technical details. You can come talk to me about that afterwards if you want. But what we do in overview is that we transcribe every single break from a radio station, the spoken word content. We categorize and summarize it. We tag it with keywords. And once we've done that, we're also able to create a content profile, a content distribution profile for your radio station. We can produce it for a morning show, a drive show. We can do it for the whole radio station, and we can even do it for competitors. And what we also do is we rate the content. We score the content just like you would score a song. And I come from a journalistic background, so I'm not a fan of going, hey, the news doesn't score well, let's stop doing news. But I would be a fan of going, hey, our news is not working. How can we make sure the news actually start working? So what I've brought to you today is 3 examples. I didn't do the mythology imagery, and I'm happy now because it would have failed completely after your beautiful images. But I've also brought 3 examples. And the first one is an example of something that I think most radio stations have always tried to do, which is to make a market scan. What am I doing and what's the competition doing? How is the profile of our radio stations compared to each other? And I know that we do it on music, that's relatively easy. You would also do it on talk percentages, and you would probably also try to listen in once in a while and see if you can figure out what the different vibe is in the morning show on that station or that station. But it would take a long time to get a realistic and correct image of what other stations are actually doing. Now, this has taken 10 minutes for me. It's a scan of 3 different radio stations in the exact same city, an AC station, an oldie station, and a CHR station. And the numbers you see is numbers of percentage-wise how much of that type of content they have in their breaks, in their spoken word content. And unsurprisingly, the AC station has lots of content about the listeners and listener interaction and lifestyle. The oldie station works a lot more with regional content and works with politics. And the CHR station has entertainment and lots of stuff that relate to the listeners. So it's not really surprising, but it becomes very precise. And if you dig a little deeper, you will also be able to see that there are some content categories that are terribly underrepresented here, and you'd be able to find the gap in the market. So this would be for a scan of something where we're looking at other people. But looking at ourselves and looking at what we do good and what we do bad, the next example is about a promotion that I think most radio people, at least in the commercial sector, they know. It's the promotion where we give away money by paying the listeners' bills. It's very popular and done in a lot of different ways. It's a game that listeners like, and if we look at these graphs, the yellow bar shows you how the average content performs on this radio station that we're looking at. The light gray bars will show you how the promotion in total performed on this radio station, and you can see that it's popular content. It outperforms the general content, so that's good. But the significant thing here is the payoff, the segment where we actually give away the money, where it's supposed to peak. It underperforms terribly. And the reason it does that is because it's pretty boring hearing other people win money without doing anything. It's not really entertaining. It's just, hey, here you go, here's 10,000 kroner. And then a guy going, hey, I'm really happy. And then the break is over. Nobody really wants to hear that. So someone else did the exact same promotion, but they gave it a twist. They said, tell us your biggest sin, and we'll pay for the damage. As you can see, all breaks, 5.6. The bill-paying promotion, 5.8, worked well. But the payoff is overperforming significantly because a person is sharing a deep secret to win 10,000 euros or 5,000 euros. So all of a sudden, it becomes good content. So, and this can, of course, I think this survey took about 10 minutes to make as well. And this would be something, Bill is saying 5. Took about 5 minutes to make as well. And so this is a way of looking into the minds of your listeners in a way that you've not been able to do before and actually know if what you're doing is working or not working. The final example is about this guy. I'm sorry to bring him up on the screen with so many Europeans in the room, but I call this the Trump test. I used to be a news journalist, and I honestly wish I had this option when I did the morning news. Because often we were just kind of going with the news flow and figuring out, okay, so what do our listeners actually want us to talk about? So what we did here was we looked at a major station, a major European station, and we made a timeline on the 20th of January. Before the 20th of January, whenever this station mentioned Donald Trump, the content underperformed. It had a score of 4.57. A normal score on this station is somewhere around 5.7. So a significant underperformance whenever we mention Donald Trump. Now, when our little orange friend took office on the 20th of January, and we measure after the 20th of January, the content performs to a 6.3, so a significant overperformance. We've also tried to add the words Musk, tariffs, Canada, US, and the picture is the same. When something becomes extra relevant, obviously listeners are more interested. And this is a tool or a methodology that you can use to have your finger on the pulse and know exactly what listeners are thinking about and if you're servicing them in the right way. And another observation in the same related to this one is that on most stations, and this goes for even CHR stations, right now, international politics is the most popular topic. So you can give away 10,000 euros, but honestly, people would rather you hold their hand and tell them what the hell is going on. All right, back to Mona Lisa. Like I said, Mona Lisa would probably not have been as popular if she was like this. We don't even know why she's smiling, but I found a gift that proves it's because she listens to a lot of radio. So apparently even Mona Lisa has good taste. As you can probably tell, I tried to keep this presentation as simple and unscientific as I could, but you're welcome to come talk to me in the booth or shoot me a mail whenever you have time, and when you come back from Greece, which coincidentally rhymes with cheese. Thank you.
Great job, great job. Well, I got to tell you, you're a brave person who tries. It may not have been a digital product, but I suspect no refunds. And you missed the last slide, which was disappeared off the screen very quickly. We said, you've been great. G-R-A-T-E. So, our last speaker, Corey V. Paulsen, jumped on a plane at the last minute, very kindly to be here. He's from the Danish Broadcast Company. He's been researching international, interactive and digital projects for 2 decades, and he's been involved with the digital parts of many global public service media festivals. Today he's going to share insights about new changes in the use of AI as media houses try and catch up with the marked potential and balance the ethics and humanities issues at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Corey Paulsen.
Thank you very much, Francis. For those who came to Athens to see Dirk Sotens, he's not coming. So I'm going to be here instead. I have 3 cases, as you also had, because I thought I might as well do the same. Yeah. Those who were in Munich last year, I did a presentation together with my friend Lars about AI, and at that time I was sort of being an advocate of don't use it, and he was very, very happy with it. So it's a bit ironic I come here and show 3 cases of how to use AI in public service media. On the other hand, I'm a bit underwhelmed. But I always get really underwhelmed when I see AI cases because basically I don't really like it. On the other hand, there are also parts of these that are really, really, really interesting. And what I've been looking for and searching for, I asked all the friends I knew globally doing public service broadcasting, what projects did you create that ended up not being published because of ethical things or because of right things? Did you develop something? And I got 3 cases that I want to share with you. One of them was actually published. The other one was not published. And the third one is out in a beta version like yesterday. So are you ready for that?
Yep.
Thanks a lot. So last year, I guess we all stepped into this reality that AI is here. And most of us, when we saw what generative AI can do, said, wow. It can create content, it can create images, videos, so on. We don't have to do anything. And it's very, very realistic. On the other hand, we also said, fuck. Because what's left for us to do if we are like creatives and we are going to, I mean, what are we going to do? And today I just read an article about 2 robots talking together, and they used a language that no humans understand. I don't like that. So we are sort of in the middle of this, and this is where I am, and this is what we are going to see in these 3 projects, because it's sort of where we're balancing. And what we're trying to figure out here is where's the limits to what you can do and what you should do. And the 3 broadcasters were generous enough to share some insights. So there's not going to be any coherency in the slides because they're from 3 different people, and also the way they share the insights on screen is a little bit sort of different. But on the other hand, I have a lot of material about this. So if you want to hear more than just 3 minutes each, you can come to me afterwards and I can share everything with you. And my email is going to be here. You can also write me. So last year, what we were talking about, because of we figured out, okay, if a lot of the people who are creating these services think we should actually have half a year break before we do anything new. Maybe we need some regulations. The Japanese didn't care. The US didn't really care a lot. They just, went on. But in Europe, we created this EU AI Act. You could read it if you want to, or you could put it into a chatbot and ask what are the, that's probably better. But the two main things about this is we don't want Chinese conditions in Europe. We don't want people to be surveyed. We don't want to take identity away from people. We don't want to see people as non-citizens. And the other thing is that we also actually need to preserve people's rights to material. So because of this, if you use AI and as a public broadcaster or just a broadcaster, you need to be able to show where did I get the material from, which is okay. And then this year, we had a thing in US and China, and now we're talking about this. So we have deregulations coming on. And the EU is stepping back from some of the things, saying, well, we might miss the train. We have a productivity crisis in Europe. Maybe if we have all these regulations that are really good if you want citizens and not products or consumers. But they're stepping back, and I'm really curious to see what it's going to mean, because there's a we are really trying not to miss the train. So this is on the macro. If we go to the micro, what does it mean when we are doing ethical stuff as public service broadcasters and doing radio and TV? I think these are some of the things we talk about: transparency, bias, rights, hallucinations, jobs. You probably heard about them 1,000 times before if you heard about AI. I think the last one, if you see these cases I'm going to share with you, is that I've been doing so many presentations and seen so many presentations, and I think the most common things that people are going to say from stage is they ask the question, will I use my job to an AI? And the answer is no, you'll use your job to someone who is better at using AI than you are. I'm not sure that's how it is anymore. Maybe we will actually lose our jobs to AI. Or on the other hand, if you want to make money, maybe we can actually replace people with AI. We see this is what's happening. The main thing here for public service broadcasters is trust. That's the only reason why we're there. And if you can't trust the material, if they hallucinate, if you don't really know, we don't really know how they work, these services. We can't make mistakes. I've been doing an AI project for 1.5 years, can't publish it because if it makes a mistake, we are screwed. And what happens here is that, this is borrowed from SVT, that when we publish stuff, we usually don't use AI. If this is on the outside, we don't really publish a lot of things, but we use it as a means of to be more efficient on the inside for scripting and so on. So I think what's happening here is that all broadcasters are actually saving a lot of money and being a lot more effective by sort of making the supply chain more effective. But we rarely see anything where it's sort of hitting the users. But the three projects here are actually doing that. And we don't see that very often. And that's why they might be interesting, even though they might be underwhelming also. What we say about the reason why we don't really use it on the outside is that a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a managed decision. We talk about there has to be a human in the loop. So 2 of the projects you'll see here, they still have a human in the loop, and the last one doesn't. It's the whole idea of automation and not really being cautious enough about what is out there. You always have to consider this, but I think this is a wall that's falling down. This is a barrier that is this is changing. In the future, we will not see humans in the loop. And I think the 3 projects you'll see, because they are made and because they are out there, I think it means that eventually this will be the market standard. It will be what we do. And let's look at them. The Washington Post recently put up a chatbot where you can dive into their material to figure out ask a question like this, personalized information about anything from the Washington Post. I know this paper is in a bad standing right now, but that's a different story. So let's look at the projects and see, should we stay or should we go with this? AI Ketil, KI because it's Norwegian. You may have seen this before. They, during the election, They actually published this, and it had pretty good results. They put out a digital chatbot version of their politicians, the political analysis, Ketel, and you can ask him questions, and he's a chatbot, and they use his voice and they use his face, and it actually worked quite well. It says, warning, AI Ketel might make mistakes. And typically in Norwegian, they would say the world's first. So why did they do it? Well, they wanted to experiment. They want to see what happens. They want to give awareness. They want to set the agenda. Interestingly enough, they don't have the users anywhere, but that's, but still, I think they wanted to see what happens on the edge if you do this. And anyone could go in and ask a question, and he would answer. He would answer from stuff that the journalist had been feeding him with, the robot. And every day, new numbers would come up. So it's like for a week, up until the end of the election. And the way he didn't hallucinate was that they actually made sure you can only ask one question. Because if you want a chatbot to be weird, you just ask more than one question, it's going to be super weird. And they had a human checking that the answers were right before it was published. And it was quite a big success. And if you want to know how it worked, this is how it worked. And here.
Hei, jeg en KI-versjon av TV 2-journalist Kjetil H. Dale. Jeg ser ekte ut, men jeg faktisk laget ved hjelp av kunstig intelligens. Jeg svarer på dine spørsmål om det amerikanske valget. I min nåværende versjon kan jeg dessverre ikke svare på oppfølgingsspørsmål. Husk at jeg en KI og kan gjøre feil, men jeg skal gjøre mitt beste for å svare deg på det du lurer på.
Yeah, he promises he'll answer. He said what I just said. And this is the result, 70,000 questions. People really wanted numbers. And it actually set the agenda. Everyone was talking about this. And it was used sort of as a second screen experience. And I guess if it worked for them, it might work for you. The other one is, this has not been published. That's why it says stay, but it's actually developed and it's out on the internet, but you can't open it. The KRONCRE from Netherlands, they make a youth weekly podcast. And they thought, well, now we have all these nice tools. Why don't we make a website where you can read articles based on the podcasts and also have an image made? So they asked an AI for each of their programs to create an article. And it was quite easy. It worked. And they were trying sort of to reach the young audience in a new, different way. Everything was made by AI, this Spark markers. And then this was the development team, and then they went to the editorial team, and the editorial team said, no way, you can't do that. We don't want that. And they also asked the audience, and the audience said, no, we don't want that. But they actually think the quality is quite high. I think when you look at these images, I don't know, AI images, so a little bit, do you know this magazine called Watchtower? But then again, I think, so they have this news show, they transcript the interview, put it into a PDF in a ChatGPT, and then in seconds they have articles and images. So, and you probably tried this notebook LM, which is sort of the first introduction to what we call liquid media. So you have media in one form, and it would be changed into another one. And this is what they just do it the other way around. Take a podcast and make it into text and make it to pictures. Quite amazing. I'm a little bit wow about this, but the users didn't like it, which is, I guess, not so good. You're looking like somebody who wants to say something.
I'm looking like somebody who's giving you a minute and a half.
Didn't you say I had an extra?
Yes,
yeah.
we're at just over 10, 11 now.
Okay. The last one was out yesterday from Swedish Radio, and this is actually out in a beta version. And they created a chatbot where you can, it's in their app, and you can go in and you can ask for, they had the audience in the center actually. They wanted to do it because, well, they want to have the users to have better experiences. And they sort of made this, maybe I should just show it. You can ask a question, and then it's going to give you an answer. And it will also give you articles and films and so on from SR to actually support what you're looking for. So this is a beta version, and they say if they publish it, they will probably have to do it a little bit better. I want the last thing about Donald Trump. And then this happens. It is interesting, so we have, yeah. So this is a way of personalizing media, saying instead of putting out on your website whatever you think the users want, you actually make them choose what they want, depending on what they're asking for and looking for. So users can open full articles, listen to audio clips, ask follow-up questions, rate responses, so on. And they say, well, I talked to this guy, Ole, who said it's really working really well. So it's out yesterday. It's a new search, not an AI service. So the users might not, they're told it's AI, but it's not really sort of the thing. And why are they doing it? Well, come to me afterwards. I don't have time to explain. Thank you.
So I hope you agree, a third of 3 fascinating presentations. I'm sure all 3 of our experts will be grateful for any questions. We'll happily talk to you over lunch, which is going to be served in just a moment. But for now, would you please say thank you to Sheng, to Mikkel, and to Kåre for 3 great presentations. And do join me after lunch for a session all about radio station marketing. You're going to love it.
I'm really in the mood for cheese now.
Yeah.
So thank you.